Hello and welcome to Husky Talk. I am your host, the best podcast host in the universe. And with me today, a very special guest, my first UConn baseball alum, Jason Grabowski. Did I say that last name
You
correctly?
did. You did.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, I have trouble sometimes with pronunciation, so I wanted to make sure that I got it right. Um, you were at UConn at a completely different time, which is always interesting to me to hear from different generations and what the school was like and what the teams were like. Um, and you're a Connecticut native, correct? You're from Clinton, Connecticut.
Yep. Right on the shoreline.
What where's Clinton located exactly?
So if you go about a half hour north on 95 from New Haven, right on the shoreline there, like around Madison, Guilford, Westbrook, Saybrook.
Okay, I got you. I got you. Right around there. Now, were you a diehard Husky fan growing up? Like, because I know that you lived in Connecticut, and most people in Connecticut are diehard Husky fans, one way or another. Did you grow up like going to UConn games and being a huge UConn fan?
Never. I really,
Never.
no, I was not a diehard Husky fan. I was a baseball fan. I grew up a Yankee fan. So, for me, for baseball wise, it was just, New York. And then at the time for college baseball, I would probably say, Miami, like the top tier schools at the time that were always in the World Series, and that was really the only time you got to watch college baseball.
Right. Because obviously UConn at the time was not one of the top baseball schools. You're
No.
talking like Miami and Texas, the SEC, some of those schools, and now which is the Big 12, they had the baseball schools.
Yep.
I got you. So did you start playing baseball like really early age? Did you play little league? Did you play minor league? Was it something your family got you into early on?
It's a weird story. I never grew up even really wanting to play baseball. It was just I was hanging out with a buddy growing up, and he was couldn't hang out for whatever reason, and because he had baseball practice or something. I was like, oh well, what's that? Kind of. And obviously, I knew what baseball was, but I was like, well, I want to hang out with my buddy. Mom, dad, can I play? And then they got me in, and I didn't start playing until I was 8.
Oh, okay. I got you. 8 years old, and that was minor league, and then you ended up obviously playing little league.
Yep.
And did you develop more of a love for it then, or was it more like you enjoyed being around your friends?
Well, it was kind of both. I kind of got attached to it pretty quick because I was pretty good at it, and then it just kind of developed from there. I think I started in T-ball, then I went to what they called AAA, and then the next year I was 10 and I was in majors playing against 12-year olds, and then
Oh,
ended
okay.
up making all-star teams and stuff. So it just kind of was just one of those things I just was good at, I guess. But I did practice a lot, in the backyard, at fields, wherever. My dad always would throw to me, and whether it's hitting or pop ups or ground balls, whatever. I just put a lot of time in.
Yeah, and baseball's tough too because as you get older, and even at the younger ages, there's quite a few travel teams that you play after those seasons. Did you play on any of those travel teams that would go around and play in tournaments
No, those were non-existent back in the
back
day.
then?
Yeah,
Okay,
so it was like if you made the Little League All Star team, that was your extended season. It wasn't until, geez, I think obviously Legion when I was in high school, I played American Legion for Westbrook, and so that was like added another 40 games or so. I can't remember how many. And then after that, you went and played football, then you played basketball, then you played baseball in the spring again.
Oh, so you were a three-sport athlete. You did everything.
Yeah, up until my freshman year of high school, I was playing football, and then they came out with a fall baseball league in the Shoreline. So it was the first time I ever quit anything. I had to go in and quit football, which probably, looking back on it, was a good choice. But at the same point, I'm not a quitter, so it kind of sucked, but it worked out for the best.
No, it definitely did. And then you went on to play for your school team, obviously, seventh and eighth grade, or did you
Yeah,
move up quite fast?
no, I played middle school, sixth, seventh, and eighth, and then I obviously went to high school and played 4 years of varsity. But I got hurt 3 games into my freshman year. I broke my wrist, stayed
Oh,
second, so that wiped out that year. But then I played Legion that summer, and got back into it pretty quick.
um, did you enjoy playing Legion? Like, because Legion is definitely a higher level than high school. I mean, you're playing against older kids. You're playing against more experienced players, and it had to have been something different for you because obviously some of your teammates are different as well.
Yep. We pull from a couple different schools, and so you develop those relationships, which help during the spring when you're playing against them in high school. So it was a lot of fun. I loved Legion. Legion was great.
Yeah.
All the different personalities, and there's some characters for sure. But we had a great time, and we were good. So it made it a lot more fun to win.
And your coaches, did you think you had pretty good coaching at that level? Did you have
Oh,
good coach? Yeah.
absolutely. There was kind of like the best kids in town. Their dads coached the team. So obviously they knew me, I knew them. So it was just kind of an easy transition from high school to Legion.
And did you always play in the outfield? Were you always an outfielder, or did you play other positions?
I kind of bounced around.
Yeah.
Like my freshman year of high school was kind of a wash. I played third base for a couple games, and then my sophomore year I caught. My junior year I played shortstop,
Oh
and
wow.
then my senior year I went back to catching. And then during Legion, most of the time I played short. And in my younger years I played the outfield. To I think because of my hitting, to get my bat in the lineup.
Yeah.
And I've kind of mostly caught in Legion my junior and senior years, if I'm not mistaken.
So you traditionally were a catcher.
Yeah, I think at the time that was my meal ticket. Whether to
Yeah.
get a scholarship and possibly go to college or even get drafted. That was going to be, I think, my best position. To go higher.
Were you must have been ecstatic or elated that you got drafted by the Yankees. You were drafted out of high school. That must have been incredible.
Yeah, it was unexpected.
It was it was unexpected, really?
Yeah, I thought. I mean, there was an outside chance I thought I'd get drafted, but back then, just so naive. Small town. Small conference. Not many. I mean, I used to get a bunch of scouts at every game, but I never thought anything would come of it. And then I'd gotten a call the night before the draft from the Dodgers asking, if they took me in the fifth round, would I sign? Then it was a yes or no answer, and I couldn't give him an answer, and he's like, "That's all we need to know." And then that was the end of that. And then to find out, I got drafted by the Yankees. The next day was after a playoff game. I think we were in Tolland, and I came home, and then the scout had actually called already, and my brother was home. He answered and said, "Well, hey," he goes, "I can't tell him. You got to tell him. So call back." And then they called back, whatever, a couple hours later, and yeah, it was pretty shocking. That's for sure.
Was it a tough decision to make? I mean, were already committed to go to UConn at the time, and you were going regardless, or did you consider going to the Yankees?
No, I mean, obviously, I definitely considered it.
Yeah.
They brought everybody to the house, make their offers and do everything. So it was pretty cool. But in the back of my mind, I mean, I think I was like 175 pounds, maybe, soaking wet. So I knew I needed to develop a lot more and mature. So it wasn't that difficult, but the hardest part was my parents are like, listen, you're an adult, this is on you. What do you want to do? I was like, well, this is what I think I need to do, but it's the Yankees, so
Yeah.
it was a tough decision.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, would you say that you had any other adult mentors that helped guide you along the way, or they pretty much said you're old enough to make your own decisions, you
There was
figure it
there was
out?
a lot. I mean, there was we had a lot of close family friends. My high school coach is still a good friend to this day, um, Coach Aguzzi, and he was always there. And of course, he's a diehard Yankee fan too, so he might have been leaning the other way where I was leaning, school. But my coaches, in Legion, um, Dan Brown and John Zajac, they were a huge influence on me as well. Obviously, my parents, even my brother, um, and even Coach Baylock and the coaches at UConn. That it was one of those things where they just said it's up to you. So kind of had to put my big boy pants on and make a decision.
That's the great thing about Coach Baylock. Um, he's just such an amazing person, and selfishly, I'm sure he would have wanted to have you. But had you made the decision to go and play for the Yankees, I mean, he wouldn't have held it against you. He's just such a great guy. Um, what influence did he have on your recruiting? Like, was he the one that you would say that sold you on coming to UConn?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, just how he deals with his players, it's almost like a surrogate father at that point. He's always looking out for your best interests. Even back then, his wife, Mama Bear, she ran study hall.
Yeah,
She
she
was
did.
she was amazing too. Just like a mother figure, and it was one of those things. It was kind of like the best fit at the time too. They had Kyle Cooney, who had just gotten drafted, so the spot was open, so I could kind of hopefully come in and play right away. And then it turned out I was going to be splitting time with Jeff Usello, but he broke his finger a couple weeks before the season started, so I kind of just got thrown into the fire right away. And
Baptism by fire. That's
yeah,
always
it
fun.
kind of worked out. I started every game my 3 years there, so it was a kind of a blessing in disguise, I guess.
And is that when they moved you to play more in the outfield, or were you still playing in the infield?
No, yeah, I never played a game in the outfield at UConn. My freshman
Wow.
year, I caught, and I played maybe a couple games at first or something. But my sophomore year, my roommate Jason Edgar took a ground ball, bad hop to the nose, and broke his nose.
Oof.
So he was out for a little bit. So then I played short. I ended up playing shortstop pretty much the whole season, maybe a little bit of third and first here and there. And then my senior year, I went back to catching, and then I maybe a game or two at third, or I don't even remember if I played short at all. But kind of like high school a little bit. It's kind of like the same path.
Well, I mean, having such versatility is important, and it's rare that you could jump in and you could play catcher. You could jump in and you could play short. You could play first. You could be thrown in the outfield. You could do anything, and then you were a great hitter. So I think that all played a huge part in your career, because you weren't limited to one thing. You could do a little bit of everything, and I think that made a difference in getting you on the field. Obviously,
Yeah, I mean, if you can hit, they'll find a place for you. But it's
yeah,
kind of, it was one of those things: jack of all trades, master of none. So a
right, right.
little bit of a hamstring, but at the same point, the farther you go, in your career, the more you can help out in different spots. I guess the better it is. But it just everybody's gonna have their guys. So to be one of the guys was I was very fortunate.
Academically, what did you end up starting your major in at UConn?
My major was human development and family relations. So I don't know if that's even around anymore.
Yeah, that's what all the football guys were into. Human development, the HDFS program. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that was great. That was great. Oh, I mean, everyone loved it.
One of
Was
those
that?
things you needed a 2.0 to stay eligible. And
Yeah, that's it,
my
yeah.
dad had told me, he's like, your major's eligibility, so do what you got to do.
Yeah, that's what I was told. Your major is graduation.
Yep.
Just graduate with a piece of paper, and you can go on with your life. That's just how it was.
Still chasing that piece of paper, but
That's okay. That's okay. That's okay. So after the seasons, did you play in some of the collegiate summer baseball leagues?
yeah. I went my freshman year and sophomore year. I went to Cape Cod and played for Chatham for 2 years, um, which was
The Chatham A's. Yeah, they were in that movie with Freddie Prinze Jr. That's why I
yeah. So
think of
all
the
those
Chatham A's.
Hollywood guys were there when we were there. So a lot of some of the names were after guys I played with. So it's pretty funny.
Oh my God. What was it? What was it like down there? Is it legit true? Like you stay with a family that's
Mhm.
like your surrogate,
Yeah, you
and
have a family,
they
you
take.
rent, and they give you a job, whether it's mowing the field or the clinic that they host every day during the week, or you can do odd jobs, scraping paint off of houses, the just whatever really, to make a couple bucks.
Was it a fun experience for you, or
Oh,
did you loved it?
I loved it. It was great. I mean, plus I was close to home. My parents would come, and family, other family could come, and then getting to see guys from other programs, you know,
All over the country, yeah.
yeah, so getting to see how they go about things, just it was a great experience. I wouldn't trade that for the world.
Was there a difference in coaching style from what you were used to at UConn, and then you go to Chatham, and the coaching style was a little bit different?
It was, it's a summer league, right? So it's a little bit more laid back, so I think that's where the fun factor came in. It wasn't, so dreaded, not like college was ever dreaded, but, I remember, guys telling us as freshmen to schedule classes, at the end of, or, for the end of practice, you can get out early and, stuff like that,
Yeah,
but maybe avoid the running part of practice. Um, but, at the same point, it was just more relaxed. Coach
yeah.
John Schiffner, who was, I believe, at Plainville High School or Plainville or Plainfield, one of those forever. And I think he's actually just getting back into coaching this year. He had retired. He's like a Cape Cod Hall of Famer. Just great guy, great coach. Connecticut guy too. So just just made the transition a lot easier from one league to the next.
And how were the UConn teams when you played at UConn? So, I mean, successfully. Were they good? Did you play for Big East championships? Were you in the middle of the league?
Well, my year, I think we set the school record for losses.
Okay.
It was one of those, celebrate a win, drown your sorrows in a loss. It was a great team, great guys, a lot of fun. In my sophomore year, I believe we came like one out away from making the Big East tournament uh,
Right.
against West Virginia. And then my junior year, I think we were just outside of, I think, the tournament again. But no, I never played in the Big East tournament.
No, I mean it was tough. I mean it was tough back then, and I can't even imagine the travel schedule as well, because you're going, like you said, places to West Virginia, and they're not easy to get there. They're long road trips, long
Yeah,
road trips.
I have like one spring trip. I think my first year we went to Wake Forest. My sophomore year we played in the Metrodome, which was really cool. And then my junior year, I think we opened in Georgia Tech. But other than that, I mean, that was the start to our season. Every year was kind of like one trip. And then, we flew, I think, maybe we would have flown to like Notre Dame my sophomore year. Other than that, yeah, I was bussing it.
So you obviously had a exceptional career at UConn because you were drafted again, and you were drafted this time in the second round by the Rangers.
Mhm.
Was that? I mean, was that expected at this time, or was it again more unexpected?
That was totally unexpected, only because the same scout that drafted me out of high school that I didn't even know, like I never even remember seeing him at games really. He, I guess, at that time went on to work for Texas. So I mean, he knew me pretty well. Obviously, knew my family well. So I didn't even know they were in the mix. I went to Cleveland, I went to Baltimore, I went to Boston, to New York. I went all over for all these workouts, like pre-draft
Right.
workouts, and I honestly thought I was going to go to Cleveland. They were the ones that I thought at the time were the highest on me, and like Texas wasn't even a thought. So when I got the call on draft day, it was a big surprise.
Did you have an agent at this time?
I did.
You did. Okay.
I had a guy at first out of New York, and then about a week or so before the draft, I dropped him and signed with another guy. So I don't know if that hurt me or not. Thinking, okay, if he's gonna drop agents, right before the draft, is he not gonna sign? So signability was always the biggest factor. So I don't know if that hurt me or not, but it worked out I was with a better agent, and a better person.
And
But
did you end up sticking with him throughout the duration of your career, or did you switch?
nope, I ended up staying with him. We were together all through, my minor league career, my big league career. I went to Japan for a year, and he was actually, at one point he was in my wedding. So we were really close. I'd go out and see him every off season in Chicago. We had a lot of fun together. Um, Unfortunately, we don't really speak that much anymore. But you know,
Sure.
at the time, he was a big part of my success.
So you get drafted by the Rangers. You get drafted in the second round, which is obviously very high. Talk to me a little bit about spring training. I mean, going to training with the Rangers, and how that experience was, because it's obviously different than college.
Yeah, spring training's a grind. I mean, you're up early every day. You get early work certain days, and then you have to go through stretch, and then you know drills and batting practice, and then you gotta sit around, go eat, and then you gotta play a game, and it's
Because
just
it's long. Like I played football, and spring training is longer than any NFL training camp. I mean, they start really, really early. So
yeah,
you're there for months, and that's why I can't imagine how it was structured.
yeah. It was pretty regimented, so it wasn't. You pretty much knew what you were getting into every day after you got used to that first initial shock of wow, this sucks, but you kind of get over it pretty quick. And I'm, not for nothing, but Port Charlotte, Florida wasn't really a hot spot either. So had, maybe three restaurants you could go to, for dinner every night. And you just kind of,
Yeah, right.
so it was definitely like Groundhog Day for sure.
Were the veterans? I mean, did any veterans kind of take you under their wing and try to help you out, or did they see it more as, oh, you're here to take someone's spot and we don't want to help you?
No, I would say, in the minors, it's a lot different.
Right.
Minor league complex. It's kind of just like you have your buddies, your little cliques. The Dominicans are on one side of the clubhouse.
Yeah.
Americans on the other side. And everybody else kind of mixed in. But once you go to big league camp, well, even if if you're in big league camp, it's totally different. But on the minor league side, if we were at like Outback or something, and there were some big leaguers there, they'd pick up your bill. They knew who you were, so that was pretty nice. Back in the day when you're not really making any money, you're just surviving on meal money. And then once the season starts, you go to your city, and that's that. But everybody kind of knew everybody.
Right. Right. And when you were drafted by the Rangers. You go into camp. Do you know where they're going to place you? At some point, they tell you, okay, you're going to be single A here, double A here, triple A here? Do they have an idea of where they want to send you?
Yeah, I think my first spring training was kind of up in the air. Like I didn't know if I was going to high A or low A or where. I knew I was going to A ball. And it wasn't until like a couple days before camp broke that they said I was going to Savannah. And it was kind of disappointing, being a higher pick, and I'm going to, low A, where everybody that I played with the year before, because when I got drafted, they didn't have a low A team. They only
Okay.
had short season in Pulaski, Virginia. So all the picks went there, and then some of the guys from extended went there as well. And so, we pretty much dominated that league, and it's like a 2-month league, and I think we clinched with like 2 weeks to go. And then at that point, we all just wanted to get out of there. I think we definitely should have won that league, but at the same point, it was nice to be on our way home.
How many games total do you think you played in that league?
In short season,
Yeah.
maybe I think we started the first week of June or second week of June or something, because I signed pretty quick.
Yeah.
And then there, I think I had like 2 practices before the season started, and I would say maybe 50 games or so, 60.
Oh, okay. So it's really short.
Yeah, it was like 2 months. I think it was June and July. Well, actually, maybe I lied. Maybe it was like a little bit more than that. I'd have to look it up. I don't remember.
Okay. So you did that, and you were with the Rangers. Then you go through everything, spring training, 98, 99, same deal. Were they sending you to other places, or did they send you to the same location?
No, that year in Texas was big back in the day of only progressing year by year. Like you'd only move up one level at a time. They rarely called anybody up level to level unless you were just having a really good year. And then so I started in high A, and I just ended up staying in Port Charlotte because that's where the team was. And then at the end of that season, I actually got called up to double A, and I think I played 2 regular season games, and then they kept me, for the playoffs. And then I had a really good playoffs, and at the end of that year, I got put on the 40 man. So I kind of knew the next year I was going to start off in double A. So it was kind of after that first spring training, it was kind of easy to figure out after that.
How was it, the experience, being active and being put on the 40 man?
Oh, it was great. I mean, it was kind of, knowing that you're going to, share a clubhouse, with all these, future Hall of Famers, walking in
Yeah.
and seeing, Pudge Rodriguez, a couple lockers down, or actually on the other side of the clubhouse where, but it was really cool. Rafael Palmeiro was a
Yep.
was a great one that I remember. Finally Lee Stevens, Rusty Greer, just a lot of Juan Gonzalez. A lot of guys that you grew up watching, and now you're right there with them. It was a little surreal at first, but then you realize we all get dressed the same way.
Yeah. Right.
Get over it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I was the same way. I was starstruck once you walk in and you see that, wow, these guys are your teammates, and they're depending on you to perform. It is it is a lot of pressure. Um, so you were with the Rangers, I believe, until 2000,
Mm-hmm.
and then I didn't understand this, the Rule 5 draft. What was that?
Well, it started before that.
Okay.
I had after my year in Double A, they had, Texas put me on waivers, and then I got wavered to Seattle.
Right.
That was back when they signed A-Rod, and so at the time, like a bunch of Rangers fans thought I got traded for A-Rod. It was really stupid. But no, it was just my roster spot, I believe, that he had. So I get wavered to Seattle. I get put on their 40 man, and then I go to spring training with them. Then I go to AAA, play with them, and that was 2001. And then we're in the playoffs in New Orleans, the AAA World Series, and September 11th happens.
Oh, right.
That canceled the championship. They, declared both teams, co-champions. And that last day before we were about to, head out and go back to Tacoma, they called everybody in, and then originally they were calling up 6 guys, and then they changed it to 3 because that was the year they won 116 games. Apparently, they didn't want to break the clubhouse up a little bit, so they only called up 3 guys. And our manager told me that I was one of the 6, so it was kind of like one of those things where why would you tell me that? Because
Yeah.
the face, it was a weird year. I was fighting some injuries with my shoulder. I just, I was playing third base at the time, so I was kind of fighting that. But after that off season, that's when they took me off the roster, and then I got Rule 5 to Oakland. So
Okay.
They offer the team, they pay like $50,000 for me. Then I go to, I get put on the. No, I have to make the big league team, otherwise I can get offered back to Seattle for like $25,000. And
okay, I did not know that.
Yeah, but I was out of options, so I either had to make the team or I became a free agent. And I was like, well, there's no way I'm going back to Tacoma, or Seattle. Obviously, they didn't want me, so I declared free agency, went back to Arizona to my house for a week, and then I signed back with Oakland, and then ended up going to Sacramento.
Sacramento, what level was that?
AAA.
AAA. Okay. And AAA is obviously different than what you had experienced before. Was AAA a little bit better than some of the other places that you had been?
Yeah, well, Tacoma was AAA for Seattle, so I'd already had experience. So, and it was the same league, it was a Pacific Coast League. So it wasn't a big shock. I'd played in all these places before, so it was just, a new set of teammates. Nothing like the same it was for the last, 4 or 5 years. So it wasn't, that big of a deal.
Got you. And then Oakland eventually moved you up near the end of the season, I believe, 2002, and that's when you got to play against the Rangers.
Yeah.
And that must have been an experience going against your old squad.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, it's kind of different, only because there's only still a handful of guys that are still there. A lot of guys.
Yeah, everyone changes, right?
Yeah, so I'd gotten hurt like back. That was like the Moneyball year, right? So
that was yeah.
A lot of so obviously it's Hollywood, but there's a lot of truth there too. But I just pulled my hamstring. No, I broke my hamate bone. That's what it was in my hand. So I was gonna be one of those guys called up in that whole switcheroo, changing it up, and I was on the disabled list back then, and so I didn't go. Then I came back, and then I played, and I was playing well, and at the end of the year I got called up. So that Hatterberg, that 20th win in Moneyball, when Hatterberg hits the walk-off home run, was my first day in the big leagues.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
that must have been a crazy experience.
It was, just thinking, you're up 11-0 early, and you think you're going to get in the game, your first day, and then to have it just get washed away. But then it's kind of like it's just a roller coaster,
No, I do know. I understand. I played football, so I understand. I mean, I jumped around from the Arena League. I went to a couple NFL camps. I went to NFL Europe. I went to Canada. So I know what it's like. Like you get the call and you're on a plane and you're going somewhere. you never know when it's going to happen, and you never know where you're going to end up going. So that's just the life. It's just a life. And you said you did get married.
Mm-hmm.
Were you married while you were playing, or did you get married after you were playing?
I got married right after my first call up.
Okay.
I married, and we're married for I think just about 5 years. And unfortunately, it just didn't work out.
Yeah. No, I mean it's tough. It's tough, especially when you're going all over the place. You're not around, and it's tough on any relationship. So I completely understand that. so you played a little bit with Oakland and got some experience in 2002, 2003. And then you again were sold, which I don't understand. They pay to get you. The Dodgers take you on.
Yep.
And they took you on, and you got to spend an entire season with the Dodgers, and you're going to LA,
Mm-hmm.
and that must have been a wild experience.
That one was strange because it was another one where because I was out of options, and either had to make the team or be a free agent or get traded. And I'll never forget it. They brought me. We went from Phoenix to Peoria, which isn't very close, about an hour drive, I think. And halfway through the game, normally I'd go in like the fifth inning or something because I didn't start. And then they call me, out to the where the manager sits training on the chairs, and he's like, "I can't play you today." I'm like, "What do you mean? But then why did I come? What do you?" And they're like, "Well, because you just got traded." I was like, "Really?" And then he keeps going on and on, but hey, really enjoyed having you, blah 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 blah. I'm like, "Tell me where I'm going," like.
He tells you during the middle of the game, he's like, "Oh, I can't play you because you got traded,"
Yep.
and he's thanking you for your contributions,
Mm-hmm.
but he's not telling you where you're going.
Yeah, and I'm like, so where? And I deep in like in the back of my mind, I kind of felt it was going to be LA only because of Paul DePodesta, who was assistant GM the year before, and then he just got the GM job in LA. So I'm like, if I'm going to get traded, I'm like, that's probably my most logical place, because I knew he was like my biggest fan back from my tryout in Cleveland, back before So like in that movie, Jonah Hill is Paul DePodesta, as everybody.
Yes.
So, he was working with Cleveland, and I didn't even know him back then. I found all this out when I was with Oakland. And then when he went to go to LA, then I think there was like 4 days left in spring training, I got traded, had enough time to pack up and fly out to Vero, and then played 2 games, out in Florida, and then, flew right back out to California.
Right, right. And then you also got a chance to play in Vegas, correct?
Yep, I went on a rehab assignment there, and then I actually went down for like a month, my second year. So that's, yeah. I mean, I had played in Vegas before just because they're part of the PCL. So yeah, it was different being as a player, there as a home player versus a visitor for sure.
Right, right, right. I got you. And then you went back with the Dodgers, and you played in, I think it says 65 games, and
Yeah,
then another 50
yeah,
games.
yeah. That was a rough year, I think, for everybody. A lot of changes going on.
Yeah, in the organization.
Yeah, a lot of people probably knew they weren't going to be there the next year, so it was just different. We had a lot of injuries, so I kind of knew the writing was on the wall, there. That's
So
when.
you didn't particularly enjoy your time in LA, you would say.
Not the second year.
Yeah.
I still enjoyed it. Don't get me wrong, but I mean, it's the big leagues. How can you not enjoy it? But it was just a different feel than
Yeah.
the first year was great. I mean, it was a lot of fun. We were winning, and it's just the second year when you're not winning as much, it kind of takes its toll. But no, I love my time. I'm extremely grateful. I mean, a lot of the people I got to meet, guys I played with, coaches that that I work with. There's a lot of great people. So no, I absolutely loved it. I wouldn't say anything bad about that experience for sure.
And then the other thing I saw was you had an opportunity to play in Japan. You got to go over to Japan and play?
Yeah, that was kind of relatively easy, just because we had, obviously Tommy was a liaison, between LA and Japan. We had Nomo,
Right.
Ishii, and then Norihiro Nakamura had been the latest guy that was with LA, and so I became really good friends with him, and he was kind of a little bit of a factor as well, helping get me over there. It was a pretty seamless process. And I mean, in all honesty, they paid very well. So it kind of made the decision easy. and figure, okay, maybe I can go over and try to remake my name again. And it was a great experience. I went.
What was the culture like over there in Japan?
It was an adjustment for sure. It was definitely an adjustment for sure. You kind of stand out like a sore thumb a little bit, but I lived on an Americanized island, so that was nice. It was just kind of learning directions, knowing which subway or train to take, and which cab, how to tell them how to get back to your apartment, stuff like that. The food was delicious.
You a sushi guy?
Just the living part, I would say, was a lot easier than the baseball part,
right?
Because it's kind of like Mr. Baseball. There's a lot of, that's probably the most realistic baseball movie.
Yeah,
you could say. They kind of want to put the time in so that they can say they put the time in versus going having a 2-hour practice. You're there for 3.5, 4 hours.
Oh wow!
So it's a little adjustment.
Did anyone speak English?
Oh, hang on one second. I lost you.
Oh, that's okay.
I don't know why it's muted. I think when my wife called, it changed something.
Just let me know if you can hear me.
Let's see here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I can't hear you for some reason. Huh.
Can you hear me now?
Well, for whatever reason, it's muted on your side, or I can't hear you.
All right, give me 1 second.
I think when she called, it messed it all up.
How about now?
There you go. Okay, sorry about that.
No, that's okay. You were talking about it really was like Mr. Baseball.
Yeah, there was a lot of similarities for sure.
And I mean, did anyone speak English?
There were well, we had translators, of course.
Yes.
But there were some guys that really tried. Other guys could care less that you're just a body, help us win, kind of thing. But it was like some of the guys that spoke the best English were when they were singing karaoke.
They love karaoke over there.
It was unbelievable.
Love it.
It was hilarious because this guy could sing Dancing Queen word for word, perfect, yet could only say hello and goodbye. Kind of comical.
But. Did you jump on stage and rock out to anything?
Never.
Never.
Oh, that's not.
You weren't getting up there.
No, definitely not. I would sit back and have a beer.
Were you a sake drinker?
I became one.
You became one, yes. Yes, sake is pretty good.
Yeah.
I can't argue with that.
Oh, no, there's some good definitely cold sake versus hot.
Yes. I like the cold sake as well. I like the cold sake. So you spent 1 or 2 years over there?
I spent 1 year. I had an option to go back the next year. And at that time, I was going through the divorce. And I was kind of just wanted to be in America at the time. So I just declined it. Looking back on it, I should have taken it. But,
you were trying to save your marriage and relationship. That changes everything.
Either save it or not give her half of that contract too.
That's right. Right.
Yeah, I signed with Tampa, and then went to spring training with them. Out here.
And how was that experience going to Tampa?
Tampa was fine. I mean, they were still. I think it was like their last year as the Devil Rays.
Yes.
I mean, I was pretty much as soon as I got there, I was hurt. My knees were done. Come to find out, I mean, I think it was a lot of it was the grinding on the old school turf that they had in Japan.
Yeah.
It's literally, the thin carpet over cement. So I think it was just like the continuous, pushing off, and landing that really, jacked up my tendons and my knees. So that was it. I mean, I pretty much spent all spring training rehabbing, and then had MRIs after MRI, and finally they said, okay, here's what it is. You can get surgery, and it was a 6 to 8 months
recovery.
And they're like, you got to be in a straight leg cast for like a month and a half. And at that point, I was just like, I think it's time to call it.
It's just a tough. Yeah, it's a tough life. It's a tough decision. I did another show with someone who was talking about the Jason Kelsey of the Eagles, his retirement speech. And his retirement speech was that they complained that he was talking like he was going into the NFL Hall of Fame. And I was trying to explain, like, there's so many guys, you don't get to go out on your own. You never know when your last play is going to be.
Yep.
So to be able to go out on your own terms is really special, because few of us get to. Like, I didn't get to. Most of the people I know don't get to, and he got to. So I give him all the credit in the world. Let him talk. Let him talk, and he can say what he wants.
Yep.
And especially, I mean, you bounced around. You had an amazing career going everywhere. I mean, you got to see all different places in the country. You got to go to Japan, all from UConn. Did you keep in touch with Coach Baylock at all throughout this? Did he give you any advice? Did he stay in touch?
So during that time, yes. I mean, we always kept in contact. At that point in my career, it was kind of like, I unfortunately had to shut it down. So it wasn't, terms. So after baseball, it was a little bit tougher to, make that adjustment for sure, which I know a lot of guys go through, and it sucks.
Well, it's your identity. That's what I found. With football, I identified I was a football player. And lose that, and it's depressing. And then you got to figure out, okay, what's the next chapter of my life? You're in your 30s, and you can't play what you love, but you have to transition to find a career and be successful, and that's that's never easy to do. And people always recognize you for baseball. They know you as baseball. So what exactly did you go into after your career ended?
Like you said, it was tough. You got your whole family being like, hey, why don't you go into coaching? Why don't you go into scouting? And I didn't want to travel anymore.
Yeah, it's a grind.
I wanted to, have a home base and just be there, and, maybe find something and find a new career.
Yeah.
And so, unfortunately, I had my own little pity party for about a year and a half. And
well, it's not a pity party, man. It's such a emotional transition, and it wears on you, and it's depression. It's tough to I've had to do it several times where you got to pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and start over. And it is so hard to start over and over and over several times. So I give you all the credit in the world, because it's not easy to do, and I've had to do it, and it's like, oh my God, like, you don't think that you can do it again, or you don't think that you can do it. Like, this is what I've always done. How am I gonna make a living?
Yeah.
And it's really, really emotional. And I don't call it a pity party. I think that everything that you accomplish, everything that was your identity, and that's taken away from you. And so for a year and a half, you're trying to figure out what's the best way I can go about living my life and be happy, and make money and have success. So what did you end up doing?
Dealt with failure, 70% of the time, if not more, obviously.
Right.
At that point, but it's different when you have to, your dream is kind of shattered,
It is. Oh my God. You grew up with that dream, and now that's taken away. Absolutely. Absolutely.
The fact that that's not your identity, that was just a career that, you played a kid's game. How lucky were you? You know what I mean? So
Yeah. Yep.
once you realize, and then it's the same thing when I was in the minors, once you realize it was a business, it turns out that everybody's got the same goal of winning, but everybody's got the same goal of playing well for themselves. So once you get, screwed over that first time, then, you realize, okay, I have to start thinking about me first. And it changes things. But, after the game, yeah, then, like I said, I money going out and nothing coming in.
Right. Right.
Kind of like, okay, I need to find something. And it worked out. My girlfriend at the time that I had met in spring training here, she knew one of her best friends owned a telecom vendor, distribution company. And I was living in Arizona. So I went back to my house there. And he's like, well, you live in Arizona. I do business with a guy there. Let me hook you up. And that's how I now work in telecom. So I've been doing it for, going on, 16 years. So,
Wow. Wow. Yeah. So you enjoy the career.
I do.
Did you end up marrying the girlfriend?
I did. We have
congratulations.
Thank
Congratulations.
You. Just had our anniversary. We have a 7-year-old son.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So it's a whirlwind, it's something
it comes full circle for you.
It's crazy. It's obviously, what I wanted with my first wife. Otherwise, I wouldn't have got married. But we're at at different stages in our lives and
sure
career. And I couldn't be happier. I switched companies about just over 5 years ago. So I get to live in Florida, work from home. I mean, and our company's based out of St. Louis, Missouri. So get to go there a couple times a year. And then I travel back to Arizona for my customers. And, so it's a great career. It's different every day.
And you get to be a father. I mean, you're there with your kid.
Be at home when I can be at home and get to, spend a lot of time with him. Whereas if I was coaching or, traveling, that'd be cut to half the year, 3/4 of the year,
So tell me a little bit about your son. Is he interested in sports, baseball, football, basketball, anything like that? Yeah.
He is, I would say, just a little bit delayed, like in motor skills and, a little bit of coordination. So he loves, to hit off, have me throw to him and he'll swing and hit. But at the same point, it's kind of like whatever is right now. He just
they want that instant gratification and they're impulsive.
Yeah. So, one day it's baseball and then he's on a baseball kick,
Yeah.
The next day, excuse me one second.
No problem.
Hey, and then the next day he's in Taekwondo.
Oh, wow.
So he's doing that, twice a week. So, it's just kind of like whatever is here now.
So that's good. I mean, he has a lot of interests, and eventually he'll settle on something.
Yeah.
And let me ask you this, because you were a 3-sport athlete. What do you think now of kids kind of being forced to play one sport year round? And, there's travel ball, there's private lessons, there's so much that goes into it, and they can't play 3 sports.
Man, I'm sorry. I got another call again. I hope it didn't mess up the.
No, you're good. You're good.
So for me, I have a different spin on it, only because we didn't have that.
Yeah, I didn't either. Yeah.
3 sports all year round, and then obviously once I got to high school, it changed to 2 sports. But I think for me, I'd rather have a guy that can play multiple sports. He's athletic. He's just not a one-trick pony. But I mean, if you're that good, then why not focus on what you're good at too?
Correct.
So it's twofold. Plus, a lot of guys live in warm weather states where they can play all year round. We weren't afforded that.
We weren't, right.
So you kind of was like, all right, you play basketball to get in shape for baseball.
Right, exactly.
So it's just times have changed. The game has changed.
Yeah.
You know, now that I'm older, I'm kind of more of a grumpy old school guy. So it's
back in my day.
yeah, you know, like
That's how I am too.
You know, you pimped a home run here and there, but you kind of acted like you did it before. You know,
Yeah.
so it was. I think there was more respect. You know, for the game, for the guys that played before you. You know, kind of thing. So you know, like when I was in my first spring training, uh, in big league camp, if there was like, you know, if the bench was full because you had, you know, 40 something guys on the bench, you know, if a veteran was coming in, you got up and
you got up
and he got to sit, you know.
Yeah.
I don't think it's like that anymore. You know, maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. I'm not in the game.
No, you're absolutely right. I coached at the college level for 10 years, and there's definitely that sense of entitlement.
Yeah.
You know, they definitely always don't have that respect for the veterans, and
Yeah.
they won't give up their seat. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
That's a great assessment. And what are your opinions of UConn right now? UConn, you know, I went back and I got lost on campus. It's like a metropolis now.
It's insane. We go back every year now. And last year was my first year, like really, you know, going to continuously go back for a year, you know, each year because we do a baseball golf tournament.
Yes.
Get to graduate there, and you know, so you're able to, you know, obviously drive to the course and then walk to the field, or you know, however you want to get there. Yeah, it's changed for sure. It's a different
yeah.
feel, and just with the new stadium, with the new facilities. I mean, you compare it back to, you know, when we were there. It's like, what is this place?
It was bare bones. Yeah, it was a bare bones operation.
So it's great, and you know, Coach Penders has done an amazing job. You know, obviously the coaching staff there is great. You know, with Mac and Desi and Jeff. So, I mean, it's just a great program, and that's why, you know, they get solid players every year, and that's why they're, you know, in the NCAA tournament every year.
They are, yes. And lastly, I'll ask you, what are your opinions on the transfer portal and NIL deals and all that? We could do a whole podcast on it, but I always ask former athletes about it because it just seems like the wild west now.
I just think it's a joke. I mean,
Yeah.
And you already get education.
Yeah, I know.
You know, that was the whole goal, you know, growing up, was to get your college paid for. And now you got to be kind of bribed. You know, I don't know. Good for them. I mean, that's the way the times are. So, you know, take advantage of it any which way you can. But I guess I was just about 30 years too late on it.
Well, Coach B was telling me, like, UConn football, they lost a tight end, their top running back, tight end, and linebacker to NIL deals from other bigger programs, and you know, because UConn just doesn't have the NIL money yet, and they're trying to put something together, but it's just the haves and the have-nots. And now, what the two things I thought were funny were, the first were the NCAA agreeing to pay for the first time ever college athletes out of the television revenue money, because they get, you know, they all got $1 billion deals, the SEC and the Big Ten. So, you know, each school I think is going to get a max of like $20 million to use to pay players, and then they still can get the NIL money. I thought that was crazy. And then I saw the quarterback from Florida is suing Florida. He had an NIL deal that was that was based on his enrollment in school. He didn't enroll in school, and he transferred to Arizona, and now he's suing for his NIL deal, which we found out was 4 years, $14 million. And I'm just like, 4 years, $14 million for a kid who never took a snap for you? Like,
I listen.
I want to cry.
We could go on forever. You know, and maybe this conversation we have, you know, outside of here sometime, because I don't get it.
I don't either. And yes, we will. I am working on putting together a podcast We'll do another one on the NIL deals and transfer portals. So you're more than welcome to be a
It's like
part of it.
you need an agent for college.
They allow it now. They allow
they
it
do.
now. Yeah, you're allowed to get an agent in high school, and there's high school kids that play AAU basketball that get NIL deals. Like everything's a business. Everything's about money, and the money is just it just blows my mind. It blows my mind. It's outrageous. And the former players, there was a lawsuit, I think now go and the NCAA agreed to it. Someone sued from back in 2015. If you played in the NCAA Division One from 2015 on, you can get back pay for the NIL money that you did not receive from your career. So I thought that was crazy. I'm like thinking, oh, maybe we should file a class action lawsuit.
Retroactive to the 90s?
Yeah, why not? Let's keep going.
It's like I said, good for them for taking advantage of it, but
it's got to be controlled. It's got to be regulated.
I mean, you don't even need to take a snap or play or hit a ball or throw a pitch, anything anymore.
You don't collect. So you don't. That's happened before, where kids have signed NIL deals and played 1 year and then stopped playing, and they've still gotten their money. So
that and the whole portal thing too. You're just going to the highest bidder.
Oh, the portal.
So it's just I liked it better. Like when we played, that you have to sit. If you're going to transfer, you better sit out a year.
Yes, exactly.
Lose that year. There should be some action required for it.
Yeah. Well, the portal initially was created for COVID, which I understood because there were some teams that didn't play, and kids wanted to play, so they transferred. To keep it after COVID the way they did has just turned it into a mess. And like when Deion Sanders goes to Colorado and basically cuts the entire team on national television and has his kids stand up and say, "Oh, there's your quarterback," and it's his son. It's like, wow, times have changed. Yeah. So before we sign off, give me your greatest memory of playing in the majors. What would you say your greatest memory was?
Jeez. Obviously all the firsts,
Yeah.
Your first
at
bat, your first hit, your first home run. Like a lot of the firsts I'll never forget. Like I'll never forget obviously my first hit, I won't forget. There's a ground rule double in Texas. It was my first. It went down the line. It got stuck in the clock in foul territory. So I even hadn't touched first yet. I knew I had a double, so I could just trot the second. And I was, I met A-Rod there on second base. He was asking me about girls in the stands.
Of course he was.
I'm like, dude, what are you talking about? You're A-Rod, and I'm the schlep from the minors. So
yeah.
And then I had, Palmero whistling at me from first because I was so caught up in the moment of trying not to mess up anything that I couldn't, I wasn't paying attention to him, and looked over and he's whistling and he, gave me one of those, good job kind of things. Remember my first triple was the next day. My first home run off of Kerry Wood in LA.
Yes. Kerry Wood, the legendary Kerry Wood. Wow.
Yeah. And then my first multi-home run game was in Philly. I had the longest home run there for like a year and a half before Ryan Howard broke it.
That's amazing because you I'm the same way. You remember those moments so vividly, like they happened yesterday.
Oh yeah. But yeah,
it's such a great experience.
Can't tell you what I had for breakfast, but I can remember that.
I'm the same way. Well, I'll tell you what. We also I do a show on the Worcester Red Sox. We do a show on we do a show on the Woo Sox because I coached at Holy Cross. So I met a guy who owns a radio station there, and we do 2 shows for them, and we do a show on the Woo Sox. So anytime if you take a look at the roster and we recap the week, we recap the players. if you ever want to come on the Woosok show, we'd love to have you.
Okay.
The more experience, the better. You'd be great. You'd be great for the expert analysis, because it's for football coaches trying to talk about the Woosocks.
That's great.
So I'd love to have you on that, and then we'll definitely do the NIL transfer portal, how the NCAA is going to manage all that. So I'll definitely keep in touch with you.
Excellent. I appreciate it.
But Jason, thank you so much for being on Husky Talk. I really appreciate you making the time for me, and of course Erica Higgins for setting it up. I have to thank our sponsors, Matt Newsy of Matt Newsy Real Estate. He's the #1 Remax agent in Connecticut, 8 years running. Thank you for your donation. Thank you, Jeffrey Heil, for donating. Thank you, Tommy Collins, for donating. Thank you, Kyle Muncie, for donating, even though I harassed you for interviews when no one wanted to interview me, and you gently let me down to tell me nobody wanted to interview me. And, of course, thank you to Sean Rabinowitz, the rugby player. We are going to have him on soon to talk some rugby. We appreciate all your donations. It allows us to produce more shows, and we are growing Husky Talk each week. So thank everyone.
Yeah, so quick story about Muncie. At the end of my sophomore year, we were going to the Big East banquet because I think I was first team, and was, I think, first or second team, if I can't remember. But Muncie drove us up there, to Norwich where the banquet was, because we didn't make the tournament. So, we went there, and the whole way up, he's like, "Well, who do you think is going to be player of the year?" And I'm like, "Well, there was a guy, Larry Kleins with Villanova, had a great year, and Pete Tucci with Providence had a great year." I'm like, between them two, I mean, they both had great years. And, he had already known that that it was me. He's just like, yeah, you're probably right. They had good years, and he went along with it until after when they announced it. I think he was sitting at the table with us, and I about punched him in the face. I was like,
"Oh, Muncie."
And so, we always have that, memory. Just a great guy.
He was messing with people back then. That's funny.
Oh yeah.
That's funny. I'll definitely put that in. So after this is done, I will post it. It'll be on Spotify. I'll post the link to Spotify, iTunes, and then our YouTube channel. I'll send it to you, and please share it as much as you can, and we'll continue to grow Husky Talk. Absolutely. And Erica, thank you again for setting this up for Jason Grabowski with a tremendous career in baseball. My first baseball interview. I didn't screw up baseball too much, right? I was okay with the interview.
Absolutely. It was easy.
All right. So remember, when life gives you lemons, don't make lemonade. Take 2 oranges and throw them back at life.